Welcome back, or welcome if you're just joining us. This is the France 24 debate. We're going to turn our attention now to China. Has Beijing's most famous square witnessed the Chinese capital's first ever major suicide attack? After Monday's explosion of a car on Tiananmen Square, 200 yards from the Great Hall of the Peoples, where both the president, prime minister, and 5 other Chinese leaders were reportedly in meetings, 5 killed, including 2 tourists, run over by the car before it exploded. We'll hear from eyewitnesses in a moment. A manhunt is on for 2 men. One is aged 25, the other 42 years old. Accomplices, perpetrators, or simple witnesses? Authorities aren't saying. The 2, as well as the 3 occupants of the car, suspected of being members of the Muslim Uyghur ethnic minority from a part of the northwestern Xinjiang province that has been racked by violence in the past. Human rights advocates claim China's long overplayed the threat posed to justify its tough controls in Xinjiang, a province that's energy rich, we might add. So what are the facts and how will the new leadership react? Ethnic unrest, but one facet of the divide between Beijing and its provinces on the eve of a major party conference. How far will reforms go in a nation whose phenomenal growth comes at the cost of major social upheaval for all those pouring in from the countryside? Today in the France 24 debate, we're looking at the question of was it a suicide attack in Tiananmen Square? With us to talk about it, AOYU, who teaches history at La Sorbonne Nouvelle University. Thank you for being with us. She's the author of China's Two-Track Foreign Policy. Alice Ekman of IFRI, the French Institute for International Relations. Welcome to the show. And from Nottingham, England, Steve TSANG, Professor of Contemporary Chinese Studies at the China Policy Institute of the University of Nottingham. Thank you for joining us, the France 24 debate, where you've been weighing in on the conversation on Facebook and on Twitter, our hashtag F24debate. Now, again, Chinese authorities have not labeled it a terror attack, but initial reports initial reports at the very outset, in fact, said it was a traffic accident. Those have been all but ruled out. Eyewitnesses describe the vehicle over 500 yards. It drove into a pedestrian area, weaving through the crowds, hitting tourists and police, slamming into a bridge, and then exploding.
It's hard to explain. The car just seemed to appear. Nobody noticed it. We were standing there and suddenly it came towards us. Luckily, I moved just a step to the side and the car rushed past. Later, it seemed to be on fire. Only when we were far away did I look back and I saw that it was on fire. Then the police came over.
Steve Tsang, when you heard this story first on Monday, what was your first thought?
Well, the information that we have been given so far really do not suggest that it was a suicide terrorist attack. We did not have evidence that the car exploded. It was not a car bomb. And the idea that you have 3 suicide terrorists putting themselves in one vehicle to have a very small impact is not really the kind of things that we normally see in terrorism. If they were attempting a terrorist attack, they would be coming in 3 vehicles jam-packed with explosives. We didn't see anything like that.
Wei Yaoyu, do you agree that it perhaps doesn't seem like a terrorist attack?
I think that is the personal action, not organized, as we can imagine. It's a personal action with 2 or 3 guys. They share the same things.
So you think there was some kind of malicious intent? They're driving into that pedestrian area.
Yes.
Yes. Alice Ekman, the Reuters news agency and the Associated Press spoke to different witnesses who spoke of people having flags inside of the vehicle before it exploded. Mm-hmm. What do you think of the story so far as it's been pieced together?
Well, we have a sign of indication that it might be a terrorist attack, actually. For instance, the names are Uyghur names. For instance, the police has set an area of control quite large around the Tiananmen Square. And at the same time, we don't have much information. So it's hard to confirm at the time that it is a terrorist attack. It's hard to explain why this group of people has acted like this. What is sure is that it is happening in a tense context. Tense context for two reasons. First, it has the place itself. It is taking place in Tiananmen Square, which is, of course, particularly sensitive. It's the most sensitive place of Beijing, and not only for historical reason because of 1989, but because also it's very close to all the meeting place of senior political leaders
and of
today.
Course, and the president and the prime minister reportedly were 200 yards away when it happened.
Yes, but most of all, this is taking place before the third plenum, which is taking place on the 9th of November. It's a major meeting where top political leaders will gather to think about future economic reforms. So it is taking place in a tense context, but once again, it's too early to draw a conclusion from this act.
All right, one prominent, we were talking about the Uighurs. There is the descriptions of two men who've been distributed to hotels, men whose names signal that they're from Xinjiang province, an autonomous home to ethnic Uyghurs, Muslims. The scene of major rioting back in 2009 between Uyghurs and Han Chinese, with the most recent unrest in June of this year. Steve TSANG, we know that there's a lot of resentment there. Could something be possible? There'd been talk in the past about some kind of threat on Beijing. Is it possible?
Well, it is entirely possible, but then anything is possible under the sun. The idea that two of these three people are almost certainly Uyghur, and therefore this must be a terrorist attack, is a bit like during the Vietnam War when the United States Army shot dead somebody who happened to be Vietnamese. The conclusion would be that he's a Vietnamese, he's dead, he must be a Vietnamese communist. It's really not the kind of evidence that will prove anything at all. You can have Uyghur people who are doing their business, who may go off their rails, who may be under influence, who may have caused something like this, without actually intending it to be a terrorist act. A terrorist act is an act of theater to draw attention to a particular cause. There is no particular cause being drawn attention to. We don't know why they are doing it. Then what are they doing it as a terrorist act?
All right, one prominent Uyghur intellectual warning against any hasty conclusions. We can listen to him now.
I think
authorities have not put out any details on the evidence, for instance, the identities of the deceased, their ethnicity and so on. Authorities haven't given any explanation on the motivations behind such an act. I wish they would promptly announce the identities of the deceased and all relevant information. If the government has concluded this is a terrorist attack, then please tell us, what is the plot behind it?
Should the government be saying more at this point, AOYU? Should the Chinese government be giving out more information? They would talk. State television on Monday just talked about an incident, a major incident was the word.
I don't think so, because the information is well controlled, very well controlled, and every people who try to comment on the web, on the Weibo, they immediately
Chinese social networking site.
Yes, they will immediately move away. So I don't think even with the 35 years of reform and opening up, the Chinese authorities haven't changed the way they communicate. I think that they will try to minimize the incident and to give to the international community give them impression that it is something very serious and with a very small impact.
Alice Ekman, is it something with a very small impact?
Well, the issue is that the mere fact that we are now discussing this issue today on television is because we lack information. So we are trying to look for information. So, in my opinion,
as you said, a car that explodes on
Yeah.
Tiananmen Square, it doesn't happen every day after running over two tourists.
Yeah, but the fact that the opacity surrounding this event generates rumors. So the rumors that are rising on the internet are rising in the context of opacity. So this is also the double-edged sword of the communication strategy of the party by censoring, because now today if you search on internet, if you search on Weibo regarding the incident, it's very hard to find any information and it's very hard also to comment on this event. So it is possible in this situation that the party is trying to downplay ethnic tension, and if it is related to ethnic tension, this event, I'm not sure it is, but if it is, then it is possible that there is an effort from the party to minimize it, because the policy of the party today is to build an inclusive society. We're talking about the China dream that is appealing to every people, to the Han people, the ethnic majority of China, but also to the 50+ minority existing within the Chinese territories. So in this context, it's not in the party's advantage to play on ethnic tension at all.
Not in their advantage. In fact, at the daily foreign ministry briefing in Beijing, questions about a Uyghur connection drew this response.
You are very interested in the situation in Xinjiang. I can reliably inform you that the current situation is by and large good, and the economic and social development is very good. Like I said here earlier, people from all ethnic groups in Xinjiang want solidarity, stability, and growth. The leapfrog development achieved here in terms of the economy, society, and culture has been the result of a joint effort by people from all ethnic groups in Xinjiang, and a testament to the success of China's ethnic policy.
Steve TSANG, are you convinced?
Well, not at all. What the government spokesman said bear really no resemblance to the reality on the ground there. And the idea that they treat it as a terrorist incident, I think, is also not well based. If the Chinese government really saw what happened in Tiananmen Square as a terrorist attack, then they would have taken it very seriously. They would have tried to preserve the crime scene, investigate fully in order to establish who were behind them, what were their networks, what they were really trying to do. Instead, they very quickly clean up the scene and try to pretend that it didn't actually happen, and use the control over the media in order to give out a version of event which is not really very convincing at all.
So, Steve, what do you think happened?
Well, we don't really know what actually happened. The Global Times, which is a subsidiary of the People's Daily, put out a story in which it says one eyewitness said that that particular vehicle was being chased by some police vehicles. So it could have been a few Uyghur people who happens to be perhaps stopped by the police or being investigated by the police and started to drive away, and a high-speed chase that just ended up in a real disaster. But we don't really know what actually happened. I don't think we should rule out the possibility that it was something a lot less sinister than that it could be a terrorist attack.
Alice Ekman, does this, the way we were talking a minute ago, and way AOYU was saying how, you know, this is the standard procedure for the way you handle the communication on something like this. Is there any indication that the new leadership that's come in since the end of last year in China is any different from the previous one when it comes to these situations?
Actually, we were asking ourselves, I mean, I'm talking about China analysts, we were asking this question 1 year ago before the 18th Party Congress. We were not sure, is Xi Jinping a reformist? We were asking ourselves, and actually today we have the answer, which is clearly no. He's not a reformist for several reasons. First reason is continuity in the communication strategy of the party. It's also continuous control of the dissent. It's also actually reinforced control of the censorship of the media in general terms, and also a growing use or continuous use of methods that were used used even during the Mao era. Of course, to a lesser extent, the situations are not comparable. But
what do you
for
mean
example,
by that, during the Mao
For
era?
example, recently, last month, we had session of self-criticism. Party leaders, of, for example, of Hebei province, had to criticize themselves in public and also criticize each other. These are sessions, self-criticism sessions that have been seen in the worst period of time of Chinese contemporary history, for instance. So this is, of course, to a lesser extent, once again, but we have seen not only continuity, but some form of reinforcement of red propaganda, and as well of the tool of the using of tools that had been used before the Hu Jintao and Wen Jiabao time.
All right, when he was anointed last November as China's new leader, Xi Jinping promised a new era in the fight against corruption.
In this new environment, our party faces many severe challenges, and there are many pressing problems within the party that need to be resolved. Problems of corruption among the party members, of taking bribes, of being out of touch with the people. Undue emphasis on formalities and bureaucracy must be addressed with great effort.
Contrast that, if you will, with the speech with the opening Monday in Shaanxi province of the trial of 3 activists who had called for Chinese officials to report their wealth. This follows the arrests of other activists, as well as a crackdown on academics and online commentators with large followings. I believe the expression is big V's, is how they're described. This trial that's opened on Monday of those 3 activists who were seems just following up on what President Xi was saying, that there should be a new era of good governance, and they were saying to the leaders, okay, tell us how much you earn, and now they're on trial.
I think that in one side, the new leading team of Xi Jinping, he tried to make a new look, to give give the world, give the Chinese people as well a new look, and try to be different from the previous leading team. But as EKMAN said, that there's always the continuity is always going on. So I don't think they will make a big difference. This is the first paradox. One side, he tried to be more stronger and harder, and another side, he tried to make himself more popular. More popular is very difficult if we don't attack the fundamental problems, just as the social injustice, just as the ethnic tensions, etc., and the corruption as well. So
what's interesting is that what you're both saying is that there's a power play going on, isn't there?
Yes.
There's a power play between conservatives, reformers. There's a power play.
Yes, but now it's very difficult to distinguish who is the reformer and who is conservators. As, for example, I think that in end, the reformer or conservators, perhaps they share the same interest. They share the same conviction. Only the difference is the different way they will take.
A different approach.
Yes, different approach.
Steve TSANG, do you agree that it's a little too cynical and quick to just dismiss the new leadership and say, well, they're just exactly the same as the previous team?
I don't think they're exactly the same as previously. I think Xi Jinping is actually doing quite a lot of things. And Xi Jinping is really not, in any sense, a liberal reformer, which I think is what you imply when you say a reformer. He is a Leninist reformer. He is strengthening the party. He is increasing the capacity of the party to control. And the increase of the capacity of the party to control is to deliver results. He intends to deliver a lot more results than his predecessor did in the last 10 years. But nowhere along the line is Xi Jinping intending to allow any kind of democratization, as we understand the word, to happen in China. If anything, his objective is to preempt the demand or the need for democratization at all, for which he needs to be even more effective in establishing the control of himself and of the Communist Party. And that's exactly what he's doing. And this is what he meant by his reform.
All right, so that you can have an argument about economics, but not an argument about whether or not to have more democracy. We have a question on Twitter from Lama, who says, does China have something to hide? Does China have something to hide when it comes to all of this?
Well, China is considering, at least the political leadership is considering that it's not necessarily good to release information about the way the party is working, about the way the decision-making process is working as well. So in that sense, yes, China has something to hide. And I would say that it is, to some extent, counterproductive today when we analyze China, counterproductive for the quality of the analysis, but also for the image of China abroad, for sure. But to come back to what Steve was mentioning regarding reform, we have to have in mind that the key aim of the party today is stability, social, political stability, and economic reform, which is supporting domestic economic growth. And in the party's mind, the two areas are separated. We tend to consider here that
it sounds almost like Mission Impossible, doesn't it?
Yeah, it sounds impossible, but
you want to have economic growth, and at the same time, without social upheaval, with most notably all these migrants who are leaving the countryside and going to the big cities.
Exactly, but Xi Jinping just quoted what Deng Xiaoping was saying in the 1980s. He was saying political stability in general terms is a prerequisite for economic development. And Xi Jinping is quoting him again. So according to him, there is no paradox here.
All right, and you were mentioning that there is that big meeting that's coming up next month, the Communist Party leadership gathering, a crucial meeting to set reform policy for the next decade. All agree the stakes are very, very high.
China is now at such a crucial stage that without structural transformation and upgrading, we will not be able to sustain economic growth.
And those remarks made last month. This Tuesday, the Wall Street Journal published a sneak peek of recommendations made by an influential think tank, the Development Research Center. Its recommendations include far-reaching reform of the financial system, a free market for land for the first time, and more market competition, though it stops short of suggesting outright privatization of state firms. Steve TSANG, when you look at the tug of war that AOYU was describing between those who see different paths to economic reform, what are the chances of that wish list being fulfilled?
I think the chance of the wish list being incorporated into policy is very high. And what we see as contradictions, the Communist Party doesn't actually see them as contradictions. They are both essential requirements. And they are required not for the sake of themselves. They are required in order to ensure the Communist Party can stay in power. That is the first and foremost objective of it. And they will want to allow a bit more economic and financial liberalization. When the party can maintain that control, they will allow less of that liberalization when the party has less capacity to control. They don't want to take any risk.
Do you see we could see some surprises, AOYU?
I think it's very exactly what said Mr. Tsang. That firstly, the main concern is to keep the power, and the paradox is that the Chinese leaders, even they are pretty younger than the previous one, but I don't think that they understand the economic market economy as we understand, because the market economy means liberal competitions and private initiative and private entrepreneurship. But this is the main leaks in Chinese economy, because you know the monopoly of Chinese national firms.
Still some work to go in terms of opening up that economy truly, and the currency. I want to thank you, AOYU, for joining us. It was short, very interesting discussion. We'll, of course, continue to follow it, especially in the run-up to that conference. Alice Ekman, I want to thank you as well. And Steve TSANG for joining us from Nottingham, England. Thank you for being with us here in the France 24 debate. Stay with us. Much more to come at the top of the hour right here on France 24.